Körper zur Verfügung haben, wie wir mit kleinen Check-In-Übungen da direkt was verändern können. Also das kannst du hier heute aus dieser Folge mitnehmen und lernen, wie die eigenen Muster, wie wir die besser für uns entpacken. Denn genau dieses Bewusstsein ist der erste Schritt zu einer Veränderung, kann ein erster Schritt sein. Und in diesem Abschnitt teile ich auch eigene Erfahrungen mit Perfektionismus, mit dem Gefühl, auch vom eigenen Körper getrennt zu sein. Ich habe ganz viel von Nicole LePera gelernt und wünsche dir ganz viel Freude mit dieser praktischen Folge. Die ganze lange Version davon ist auch sehr hörenswert und den Link dazu findest du in den Shownotes. Ganz viel Spaß mit dieser Episode und dann legen wir direkt mal los. You were describing it as the wires, how we are wired. Yeah, so and I like the picture, and maybe people haven't seen it. So it's this picture of, if you imagine a body, you see all these nerves that are basically anywhere in our body. And if you just have this human figure and you see all these nerves, it's like there are wires everywhere. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the nervous system, right? So maybe for all the beginners.
100%. I appreciate, you asking for clarity. So I love that visual. We're talking about all of the internal wiring that governs or allows us to, everything from even things that we don't have to think about, like breathing, like digestion, right? Like waking and sleeping, things that just seemingly happen, whether or not we have a say or control of it at all. Very much like you're describing kind of the wires. It does not only that which we don't have to pay attention to and all of the systems and functions that just keep our body alive, it plays a role in terms of how clear our thoughts are, right? It plays a role in terms of how our energy feels, which impacts then how we show up or embody that energy, not only in our own personal experiences, but even beyond the internal wiring. Our nervous system, we actually now know, verified by science, extends outside of our body. Now, of course, this isn't a world of things that we can see, like we could see with certain microscopes and medical technology. We could quite literally see these nerves that you're describing internally. What we can't see, though, that which is still happening, is the unseen signals or shifts in energy that then extend beyond our body that impact other bodies around us. So you and I were having a talk. I have someone else in the room with me who's making sure this all looks and sounds good. He's a couple feet away from me. And in reality, his nervous system is sensing and sending signals to my nervous system outside of both of our awareness. So again, the nervous system, again, is very foundationally important for how our individual bodies function internally, of course, and also is kind of our interface, to continue with the computer analogy, right? It's the way in which we sense the world around us, because what our nervous system governs, from it kind of tending to those physiological sleep-wake digestion cycles, right, that keep us alive, the external portion of its function in keeping us alive is assessing outside of our awareness 24 hours a day, even when we're not paying attention to the fact that it's doing it, the safety that we're experiencing within our environment. And if and when our nervous system detects something that's unsafe, a loud noise, which is why many of us jump, even if we're sleeping, we might even be woken up by a door slam, right? We weren't consciously paying attention to the fact that we were paying attention, but our nervous system was. And certain things, sensations outside of us, signals or factors outside of us will signal threat. And then outside of our awareness, we don't have to even choose. Our nervous system will, to sustain our life, initiate a set of responses to help us find or maintain safety as quick as possible. So again, it is so foundational, not only for how we're functioning, it is so foundational, our nervous system, that is, for how we're perceiving and functioning safely in the world around us. Though the reality for a lot of us, myself included, is the wiring that was created in those early environments don't always create an experience of us being calm, grounded, right? Don't allow us to be accessible to our creativity and everything that we were talking about earlier. And instead, what we're living then within is a dysregulated system, if you will, which of course then has its own impacts, though verified by science. Again, we now know very gratefully that change, or our body's ability to rewire our nervous system, the scientific word is called neuroplasticity. So it's the ability of our brain and all of the neurons and nerves that kind of extend out from our brain to change or to create new wiring, to continue to use that analogy, at any age. And that's an incredibly empowering and inspirational, in my opinion, piece of information that then can be acted upon, so that each of us have the tools, if we are realizing, maybe as a result of this conversation, that we are living with some dysregulation that is not only impacting ourselves, it's impacting our ability to show up in our relationships and our impact on the world around us. We can create that new wiring at any time.
Safety is something that is crucial. We need to feel safe to go to any other level, basically. If we're not safe, it's limited what we can do. I'm trying to rephrase it in easy language. So it's safety is crucial. If I don't feel safe because I heard a loud noise, I cannot fully focus on what I was doing. And this is not only the case if there's an actual threat or something externally happening, but for many people, that's what you were saying with being wired that way because of childhood trauma experiences that we made. We are, and I can speak for myself actually, I have been in a physical state for a long, long time in which I was basically all the time in sort of a threat. So my nervous system was with I think a few exceptions and situations, basically all the time like switched on and in a high stress mode. And maybe we can talk a bit about that so people can maybe relate, and some of them might even say like I did for myself, I didn't know that. I was constantly in this overachieving and perfectionism, and I'm just delivering and disconnected, and still am, by the way, but I'm getting better at it. So disconnected from parts from basically my body and my emotions, or some emotions at least.
I appreciate you sharing your journey that I very much relate to, very similar to my own, and so wise, you picking up on the reality that what we're talking about here, right? This even assessment or evaluation of what's, to really simplify it, safe or unsafe, isn't necessarily objective, right? We learn by what has once happened by association in childhood, and then repeatedly by similar occurrences happening. And I'll go a little bit deeper into that in a second. But we learn really simply what's safe and unsafe. And then many of us, right, begin to feel foundationally, if we didn't have what we needed in childhood, we carry a lack of safety. And as a result, the behaviors that go along with that, right? The hypervigilance, the always scanning and focusing on something outside of myself, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Sometimes it looks like this overemphasis, like I was sharing, on achievement. Other times it looks like we're completely shut down and we're not really here. We don't feel very present. We struggle to pay attention. And all of that is our body's at one time adaptation, typically, to that which is unsafe. So just breaking down the nervous system really quickly, right? When we're always scanning for safety. And in childhood, we are born in human form as a completely dependent creature, meaning we feel really unsafe all of the time because we can't protect ourselves. We can't feed ourselves. If we really want to reduce it, right? I'm going to use the word survival. We can't survive on our own. And so we are so dependent on the caregivers, the circumstances, the environment that we're born into to create safety. And ideally, if we have a physically present caregiver, which not all of us do, right? Some of us were left home alone. If we had parents that had to go out for whatever reason, and for financial reasons, for other reasons, right? If we have someone who's not only physically present, but they're emotionally attuned, which means they sense and they're able to show up for us when we're in distress or dysregulated, or really simply when we're crying as a child. More so, it's not just important for them to physically be present and them to be attuned to know that we're upset. they in their bodies have to be able to find a peace and calm, grounded place, because our nervous system quite literally needs to not just feel them telling us from their verbally, you're going to be okay, hush, 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 little baby, you're okay. Our nervous system, just like I was using myself and Furkan, who's here with me, right, is communicating. So unless that parent feels grounded and okay, the child isn't going to actually be able to go from stressed or upset back to peace and grounded calm. And I want to emphasize that because we are wired to deal with stressful experiences. It is never an expectation. So I do want to speak this because some of us, I think, have this idea or maybe hope that to be healed or somewhere on this journey, we get to this utopian place where we never feel stressed out, where we never feel upset, right? That's not the case. We are equipped to deal with stress. Again, as initiated by our nervous system, physiological shifts and changes happen when we perceive stress, whether it's accurate, real, imagined, what have you. Our heart begins to race, our breath begins to quicken, our muscles begin to tense, getting ready for action. And then when the stress ends naturally, or when we're comforted by that attuned caregiver, and their nervous system tells us that it's safe to relax, and we relax into their arms, then all of those systems deactivate. Our breath begins to slow. Our heart rate begins to go back to its normal range, whatever that is for each of us. And the tension in our muscles releases and we feel at ease again. And if and when that doesn't happen naturally, so I do like to emphasize that because the goal is to teach our body how to deal with more and more stress, to learn how to be with it when it's activated without doing what a lot of us do, screaming and yelling when we feel all that energy, or shutting down completely because we're so overwhelmed by it. So to be present with the energy and then to calm our body.